Ladies and gentlemen, happy holidays, happy draft day to everyone out there listening to this. Jeremy Brener here, host of the Hitting the Field podcast. It's the final mock draft pod for the 2020 season, and boy, we have a lot to dive into. And I can't do this alone, obviously. It's a lot of work, so I brought two co-pilots on board with me today. Got Mr. Chris Wolf. You've been on every single one of these podcasts, so it makes perfect sense that you'd end up on the last one here with me.
Yeah, it's been a good ride throughout this whole semester with all these mock drafts every month, and tomorrow we finally get to see it all come together.
Or to see it all fall apart.
It's true.
And Sean Green, we were just talking before we were going on about how we really have zero idea of what's going to happen tomorrow. But we're going to try to at least express things that may come into fruition.
Yeah, I think we'll all take a shot at it. That doesn't mean we're going to be right at all, but I think we have a solid idea, but the last couple of days has been crazy, so we'll do our best and we'll try to give as much information as we possibly can.
Yes. Like March Madness brackets and Legos, these are meant to be broken, and I expect this to fully, cause chaos and havoc all weekend long. But we are throwing out some possibilities that may happen, and I think that our three mock drafts do have some sense of, what could possibly happen. Maybe one trade that might take place, one trade that may not take place, something that's an idea that's brewing up. So that's why the two of you are on board with me today to go through it. I'm not even going to go through the first two picks. I think it's very clear that Joe Burrow and Chase Young are the top two. And the draft really starts at the third pick. So we really have a lot to do. I know Washington was talking maybe about creating a package. I just can't imagine them passing Chase Young. And if they do, they must have gotten some really crazy good package. But nonetheless, we're going to assume that Chase Young is going to end up with Washington in 24 hours' time. But we start with the number 3 pick, where Detroit is on the clock. Now, Detroit has talked about possibly moving down for this pick. Sean, in your mock draft, you state that the Detroit Lions stay at 3. Why do you think that the Lions would stay at 3?
To be honest, I just don't know who they would trade with. I do think it's a 50-50 shot that they do trade the pick. I said that they would take Jeffrey Okudah with the third pick, but I don't know who they would trade with. Maybe Miami. I know that's been the talk, I don't know, the past couple hours about Miami trying to potentially trade up to 3 to take an offensive tackle, trade their 18th and 26th. We have no idea, but I think Detroit needs a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if they trade down, but they need another corner to pair in that backfield. So I think Jeffrey Okudah would be a great place to take him at 3. But if the Lions trade out of this pick, Jeffrey Okudah is going to fall a couple slots.
Yeah, Jeff Okudah makes a lot of sense here at 3, and that's what the HTF Collective Draft has said. The HTF Collective Draft is a collection of all of our analysts' mock drafts combined, and we take the median answer for each pick, and we create it for there. It'll be featured on our draft show tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to tune into that, and we also have our alumni collective mock draft. So we'll have two things to compare themselves to. But Chris, you and I believe that Miami is the team that's trying to trade up for number 3. That's something that definitely has been considered. There's been rumors about maybe them trading 18 and 26 to move up to 3. Obviously, it's a lot to trade up to 3. But why do you think that the Lions decide to go here and trade with Miami?
I believe they do it not because they may. I mean, I feel like they're gonna do it because it's like almost free compensation, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. In a way, if they're only trading from 3 to 5, if they're trading from 3 to 5, that's like free compensation because Jeffrey Okudah is not going to go to the Giants. The Giants are not going to pick him. The Giants are looking at probably either Isaiah Simmons or one of the offensive linemen. So it's like the Lions know that at 5, they are going to have their guy. So they could just pick up extra draft picks by doing this. And whether it's like if it's Miami or maybe even LA, it's more talk to Miami. Miami going up to 3, they can get whoever they want, pretty much.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I think Detroit does end up eventually pulling the trigger, especially if it is for Miami's 5th pick, because because the chances of Miami and New York taking your guy is very slim. I can't imagine they would trade Miami for 18 and 26, just because I feel like that they don't get their guy at 5. And I think that there are several people that they could want at 5 that makes sense for them. I think Jeff Okudah is one of those players, and I think that it makes sense. But if Okudah does not go 3, I agree with you, Sean. I don't know. I think Okudah is going to fall and is going to lose some money. And I'll explain where I have Okudah later in my draft. But at 3, so Miami trades up for 3. Chris, you have them taking Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert. Can you explain your reasoning behind the Dolphins going up to get Herbert with the 3rd pick in the draft?
Well, when I made my mock draft over it was a while ago during the beginning of the week. It was the Dolphins were leaning toward. There had been reports of saying that maybe they're leaning toward Herbert over Tua, and maybe just to be safe, to trade up, just to trade up and get the guy they want, because they know that the Chargers are behind them, one spot behind them, and they are looking potentially at a quarterback as well. But we don't know who the Chargers, and the thing is, Chargers have been very quiet. They're not really telling you which one they would prefer. I have not heard as much about them as the Dolphins have. So so that's why I had the Dolphins trading up to be safe, to make sure you get your guy. But as we've been saying, like this afternoon, there have been reports that the Dolphins want to get up to 3, but not take a quarterback, to take an offensive tackle.
Yeah, so I made this draft. Yeah, I made my mock draft right before we came on the air, and I've been tweaking it all day. And this is something that I think that Andrew Thomas has been a name that people are like, watch out for Andrew Thomas. He's a lot higher on GM boards than he is on the public's boards. And I believe that rumor. I think that Andrew Thomas is the guy that they really do want. And I think he's a really good fit for Miami. I assume that Miami's going to walk away from this weekend with a quarterback. So why not give your quarterback some solid protection? And Andrew Thomas does that for you. So, I mean, there's a lot of good tackles that you can take. And the thing is, it's seeming like Miami has their eyes on one tackle in particular. That could be Jedrick Wills. That could be Tristan Wirfs. It could be Mekhi Becton. We don't know. And I think that's what makes this draft so interesting, Sean, is the fact that, because there's been a lack of pro days where GMs meet up at various pro days, because there's been people are just literally watching film, watching tape, and they're keeping to themselves. Everyone's cards are close to the vest, and it really is going to create I think that's the reason and the root for all this chaos that we're going to see this weekend.
Absolutely, and I think the teams that need that offensive line help, like the Dolphins and, like the Chargers, for instance, I don't think the Dolphins would necessarily trade up just to take Justin Herbert, because let's be real, the Giants, even though I have them taking Isaiah Simmons with the 4th pick, which, again, I'm looking at teams that if you need help everywhere, you take the best player available, but the Giants need offensive line help. So I do agree with you, Jeremy, that I think that Andrew Thomas will be the first tackle taken off of the board, because, listen, he can play left tackle and right tackle. So they can plug and place him wherever he wants. And for the Giants, who need a tackle like that, they could easily put him into left tackle, with Nate Solder not playing that well. So it's going to be interesting. I do think the first two tackles off the board are going to be Andrew Thomas and Wirfs. I think Jedrick will slides a little bit because he can't play both left tackle and right tackle. He's a little bit more of a project to play both slots.
And Simmons and Wirfs were the two players that popped up on our mocks at 4. Simmons is what the collective decided, so keeping it very chalky almost. Simmons goes 4, but Chris, we're seeing here that tackles and quarterbacks are seen to be the hotter commodities, at least in this first part of the draft, and that means that guys like Isaiah Simmons and Jeff Okudah, guys that were surefire top 5 picks, just until about this week, pretty much, are not going to be that in that top 5. And how does that make you feel? I feel a certain way about it, but I want to know how you feel.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I mean, especially for the New York Giants at 4, because the Giants could do so much. Like they kind of have, if assuming that someone doesn't trade up at 3, they might have their choose who they want, because I mean. And the thing is, Isaiah Simmons, he's gonna be a steal. If he moves past the Giants, the earliest somebody could take him is 7, at the most likely, and reasonable. Like that'd be the next spot would be 7, that's a steal. After that,
I think Isaiah Simmons is a steal at 4. Honestly, I think Isaiah Simmons is a top 2 defensive player in this draft. Right there with Chase Young, to be honest. 1A, 1B is what I would call it. And Simmons is going to fall here, and that's unfortunate because he might be the best player in this whole draft, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And and offensive linemen, probably top 12 picks, you're going to see at least 3. Probably like I think you might see 3 offensive linemen going in the top 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could easily be what happens. I think what would be interesting is we have basically there's going to be a quarterback run of some sort in the first round. There's going to be a wide receiver run at some point in this round, and there's going to be a tackle run at some point in this round. And the tackles seem to be the first position that teams are going to trade up for. And that's, that's smart because tackles have the longest, I guess, other than really quarterbacks, but depending on which kind of quarterback you are, tackles, at least at the top of the draft, tend to have the longest shelf life in the league. So you're not just paying for 5 years, you're paying possibly to be your franchise tackle for the next decade. Plus, maybe, if you're super, super, super lucky, of course. But I mean, those are the guys that you want to go for. And I can see why the Giants and Dolphins would want to go for a tackle at this point. But the Dolphins here are picking at 5. And Sean, where you still have them at 5. So where do you think they go at 5?
It's so hard. I say they go Justin Herbert because, again, just like Bill Belichick, the Dolphins, like Brian Flores, probably is looking at Tua's injuries and kind of squinting an eye. I would hope that they wouldn't. I would have taken Tua at 5 because he is the most talented quarterback in this draft besides Joe Burrow. But I do think they go with the safe pick here, and I do think they go Justin Herbert. I am not a Justin Herbert fan at all. I've been pretty good at determining how a quarterback's going to do when he goes into the league. He reminds me a lot of Sam Darnold, and I think he's going to have a similar career to start off like Sam Darnold. They are decent in college. They've got intangibles, but intangibles can only be so much when you get into the league. And that's my problem with Justin Herbert. Yeah, he's got the size. He's got some arm strength. He can run, but he didn't show me enough in college to be like, okay, that's the next starting quarterback for an NFL team to lead them to the playoffs or to a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think without Tua's injury, Tua is a top 2 pick in the draft. I really do. Him and Joe Burrow would probably be, right there. It'd be like a Goff Wentz kind of thing where they were neck and neck.
if Joe Burrow doesn't have a crazy season
That's
with
also
60
true.
touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and Tua doesn't get hurt, I think we're talking about something different. Because if you look at the year before this year, Joe Burrow was a good quarterback. He's nowhere near the number 1 pick in the draft.
Of course.
So I do think the Dolphins screw it up. I hope they don't for their fans' sake, but I do think they will take Justin Herbert come tonight.
Well, according to the HTF Collective, they decide to not screw it up, and the HTF Collective does have Tua going number 5 to Miami, and that is, look, I think the Dolphins hold the cards, they hold the most cards. They have the most picks in this draft. They have the most first-round picks in this draft. And it really seems to be like the domino effect starts with the Dolphins here. And whether or not the Dolphins decide to trade up, that's like the first play of the draft. Do they decide to trade up to 3? Do they decide to hold back? And let's assume they hold back. Let's assume they do make this trade with Detroit, and they stick at 5. And Detroit picks at 5. Jeff Okuda's still on this board, Chris, for you.
Yep, that's what I did. I have Jeff Okuda at 5 when they trade down.
And
I had him trading down to 5 from the Dolphins, and Jeff Okuda will still be there, and that's, I think, the guy that they want. And so they'll be able to still take their guy and still pick up probably some kind of draft compensation, whether it be maybe like a 3rd rounder or something and another like later rounder, or maybe even a 2nd in a late round.
Yeah. I like Okuda, and Okuda, I believe, is a top 2 corner in this draft for sure. But I've read a lot about how the Detroit Lions love Derek Brown. And Derek Brown makes a lot of sense. He can plug and play him right away. And here's the thing. If Detroit moves down to 5, their night doesn't stop there. They're going to get calls from teams like Jacksonville trying to trade up to 5 because Jacksonville is in need of a corner. Atlanta has been apparently very aggressive trying to move into the top 5. That's a possible destination for Atlanta to move up and get Jeff Okuda. The thing is, but here's the deal. If Detroit moves down to 8, to 9, or to 16, or to whatever, they will not get Derek Brown because Carolina's at 7 and they can get Derek Brown. And that is what they don't want. I guarantee you, it will be happy regardless of whether they get Derek Brown or Jeff Okuda. And that's why they are okay with trading down, because they know that there's a chance that they might not get their choice at guys. But if they have a choice, if they get one of 2 guys, they're happy either way. And I think that if they get their choice, they stick at 5 and they take Derek Brown. And that's you're not going to see that in a whole lot of mocks. But that's something that it's a gut feeling. I think there's a chance that it happens, and I think that there's a bigger chance than what most people are saying. Derek Brown is, and look, honestly, it wouldn't even surprise me if Detroit stays at 3 and takes Derek Brown. And it's something I thought about while doing the mock. I was thinking going Derek Brown at 3. I remember 2 years ago when the Browns were picking 1 and 4. Everyone was like, "Oh, the Browns, they're gonna, trade back or something like that." They went to take Denzel Ward, and people were like, "Why is Denzel Ward here? It's he should not be this high." Derek Brown's gonna get that same kind of treatment. Cleveland Farrell also got that treatment last year. He was picked at number 4 as well. So I think Derek Brown's that guy this year. I think he's gonna be a great fit for the Lions, and that's why I have him going at 5. But now we have the Chargers at 6. Now, the Chargers at 6. Both Chris and I went with Tua on this one, but Sean, you brought up this scenario where the Chargers do not take a quarterback, and Sean, you pose a scenario where the Chargers don't select a quarterback. Could you explain your reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I think it's really just going to come down to the team that's wanting to take a quarterback actually taking that quarterback. So Tua, the injuries are a concern. If Tua never had those injuries, he would be off the board at 5 or 6 easy without any hesitation. But I think the injuries do pose a threat to some of these teams. And listen, they could say 24 hours before, we're fine with taking Tua. But when you're on the clock with that clock ticking down tomorrow, it's really going to be up to you to make that decision. I think you guys are right. I say 35% is the, iffy. Like they will take him, they won't take him. Right now, I have the Chargers going safe and taking an offensive tackle just to help Tyrod Taylor out. But it's going to come down to the team. If the Chargers take Tua, it'll be a great pick if Justin Herbert goes ahead of him, obviously. But in my draft that I had a couple days ago, I said they would be a little bit more safe and just take an offensive tackle that they know can help them on the left and right side of the offensive line.
Yeah, I think though that Tua, like, I can't see Tua starting week 1, regardless of where he ends up. And chances are, I think there's about a 75% chance he ends up in either Miami or with the Chargers. I can't imagine, like, if he falls, maybe a team comes and snags him at wherever he comes if he falls. But to me, I don't know where, like, I can't see Tua falling past 6. I can't see it. Herbert, I can see Herbert falling past 6. I actually have Herbert falling past 6. I have Herbert falling a lot. I think that's just because I think that Tua provides more. I think Tua has a higher ceiling, and I think that Jordan Love also has a higher ceiling. For me, Herbert, the ceiling isn't high enough for me to want to use a top 10 pick on him. Now, the chances are Herbert will be a top 6 quarterback in this draft. But I pose a scenario where he falls, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. But the collective draft doesn't agree with any of us, but they with Tua going to Miami in the collective, Herbert goes 6 to the Chargers here. So now the Carolina Panthers are up at 7. There have been talks about Carolina possibly trading down for a team that's a little more aggressive, trying to trade up. But all three of us ultimately decided that Carolina was going to stay at 7. And where do you guys have them, Chris?
I have them getting Derek Brown because they need. And I've been pretty consistent with that pretty much every mock draft. I've been pretty much been Derek Brown to Carolina because they definitely need the D line help. I mean, even though like Luke Kuechly was a linebacker, their defense just needs help in the front 7. And I think Derek Brown will help that. He'll apply pressure on quarterbacks. He's also a great run stopper. He's very athletic for his big frame. He's very athletic for it. I think he'll fit right in with that D line. And I also think it's one of the better players available in terms, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
And I think I've been consistent with that for the last couple months with Carolina picking Brown.
Yeah, Derek Brown has been on the HTF collective to Carolina at 7 since the beginning. So January, February, March, and April, it's been consistent Derek Brown to Carolina. And I would have Derek Brown going to Carolina if Detroit didn't snag him earlier in my draft. The fact that Isaiah Simmons is still here at 7 is the reason why Carolina doesn't fall down. And the thing is, I feel like Derek Brown and Isaiah Simmons are not players you pass up. And that's ultimately why Carolina does not fall in this draft, is because they have, like, Isaiah Simmons and Derek Brown will be week 1 starters, and for Carolina could be their best defensive player for either of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think they'd be foolish to not take Derek Brown if he is there and Isaiah Simmons is already off the board. But what I keep coming back to with Carolina is if they're going to, do something that nobody sees, I could see them potentially taking a wide receiver. The only reason I say that is, again, Matt Rule has made some questionable moves this offseason. He's an offensive-minded college coach. His first pick in the draft should be an interior defensive lineman. Derek Brown, easy pick. But I think a pick that could surprise people is him taking a Jerry Jeudy or a CD Lamb just out of the blue because he's an offensive-minded head coach and he wants to work with some of these receivers. Crazy hot take, but that could be a potential pick at 7.
I read a rumor that Carolina is very much interested in Jordan Love, and that would be a crazy pick here. It could be even at 7.
Wow.
It could be they could trade down so that they're in a better position to land Jordan Love. But the pick should be defense here. They lost Luke Kuechly, they lost Mario Addison, they lost Gerald McCoy, they lost everybody that you could possibly imagine. They need a defensive player, and most of their offseason was offense. So you would expect defense here to be the pick. Now number 8 is the Cardinals at number 8, and we've had at first we thought okay maybe they'll go tackle, receiver, tackle again. And now that they got DeAndre Hopkins, they're definitely not going receiver, or at least we think. But chances are a tackle is going to be the pick that the Cardinals make at 8 if they choose to stay at 8. And you guys, again, have the same pick at 8. So, Sean, where do you have Arizona going at 8?
Yeah, I think they go Tristan Wirfs. He can play both right tackle and left tackle. I think that's why Andrew Thomas and him are 1 and 2 on my board, is they can play multiple positions. I don't think he can play guard. So, again, I think the Cardinals will be drafting him to play left tackle. But, yeah, he's a really rare athletic guy from Iowa. But the one problem he does have is he doesn't really handle speed rushers well. So I think this could be a pick where they're going to test him out and see what he can do. But him having the ability to play both the tackle positions makes him come off the board really quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Tristan Wirfs is the pick of the HTF Collective Draft, same as it was last month. But for me, I had the Cardinals trading out of this pick. And the reason why I have this is because the Jacksonville Jaguars have been sitting at 9, and they've done absolutely nothing in this draft. And they can't just sit there and let Jeff Okudah land in their laps. Just that easy. So Atlanta, a team that's been rumored this week to be very aggressive in trading up, finds a trade partner in Arizona, and they trade from 16 to 8 to nab Jeff Okudah.
Okay.
And the reason why I think this is because look, I've also read and heard that Atlanta is interested in C.J. Henderson, and if Detroit takes Jeff Okudah, like the collective says, like many mock drafts have, then I could still see them trading up to get C.J. Henderson. But the fact that Jeff Okudah is still on the board, they go and they get him at 8, and they stop his free fall. Even if Okudah goes, I could still see Atlanta trading up here to get a corner and trading right at 8 because 8 is the last pick before Jacksonville. So, and chances are Jacksonville's taking a corner here. So that's why I have Jeff Okudah at 8. But the collective stays loyal to what it's previously done, and goes with Tristan Wirfs at number 8. So now the Jags are up at number 9, and this is where wide receivers could start falling off the board. You two again have the same pick here. So Chris, where do the Jags go here at number 9?
So I have them. I've been taking Jerry Jeudy at 9
Mm-hmm.
because they don't really have a true number 1 receiver, and
even though DJ Chark had 1,200 yards in a Pro Bowl appearance last year.
I don't think he's a true number 1 still. I still think he will work much better as a 2. I think that was just a great season. But I think that was just he took advantage of a great season and not having many weapons, so he was pretty much the main target. So I think taking a guy like Jerry Jeudy will I think it'll help both of them. I think it'll help both of them out. Because no matter who's at 1, and maybe DJ Chark is a 1, but then Jerry Jeudy's at 2, and Jerry Jeudy can thrive as a 2 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would help both wide receivers. It would also obviously help Gardner Minshew, give him another downfield threat. You have 2 speedsters down the field then to throw to, both great route runners as well, and pretty good size. But it would not surprise me. But this is with me. I'm doing this pick based off of the Lions taking Jeff Okudah. Now the Lions somehow don't take Jeff Okuda, and no one trades up. I could see Jeff Okuda fall into the Jags potentially, but as with mine, I have him with Judy because of that.
Sean, why is Judy wide receiver 1 in this draft?
It's purely on his route running ability. I think if you look at all the wide receivers, he has the best route running out of all of them. And his production at Alabama reminds me a lot of Julio Jones, just his production alone. Last year, he had 1,163 yards yards in college. That's insane for a wide receiver in college. That means you're really productive. 77 receptions, 10 touchdowns. He didn't face a lot of press coverage at Alabama, so that could maybe somebody take CD Lamb ahead of him. But I think all around he is the best wide receiver in this draft class. And if the Jacksonville Jaguars take him, that will be somebody that when they do draft Trevor Lawrence because their team is so bad, that will be a great number one receiver for Trevor to have when he comes into the league.
Yeah. I have the Jags taking CJ Henderson just because there's so much interest surrounded by him, and he's been jumping up mocks, the last couple days, and I know the Jags are interested in him. I know Atlanta's interested in him. I don't believe he's a top 10 talent. I think that there are talented players that are still on the board when Henderson comes off. I do expect him to land somewhere in this top 10. And if he doesn't land in the top 10, if he doesn't go to Jacksonville, he's falling, and he's falling a lot. I see C.J. Henderson ending up in either Atlanta or Jacksonville. He's from Florida, and you know how Jacksonville loves to draft Florida-based college players. So C.J. Henderson for me is the pick here at number 9. Number 10, the Browns are on the clock. Again, you guys, great minds think alike. You both have the same pick again. Sean, where do the Browns go here at number 10?
Well, I originally said Jedrick Wills because that should be the pick. In the last, couple hours, I've really rethought my thought and thought this is Cleveland. They're not going to take the obvious choice. I still think they go offensive line, but I think they go Mekhi Becton because Jedrick Wills is just too easy of a pick. Mekhi Becton, you could tell, is a little bit of a project. He's that big, lengthy offensive lineman at 6'7". But the problem is he weighs 364 pounds. So for an offensive tackle, usually what that means is with speed rushers on the edge, you can't really protect them as well as if you were a little bit more lean. Now, he only has 17% body fat, but he's way more of a project than Jedrick Wills. So even though the smart pick in the one that I had them would be Jedrick Wills, can totally see them going Mekhi Becton here.
Could you see Mekhi Becton playing in interior lineman position at some point during his career, just because he is so big?
Yeah, I could see him maybe playing right guard, right or left guard. But it was just he would have to lean down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He is so big, so protecting that edge will be a big issue coming into the league. Because let's face it, at Louisville, he didn't really face elite pass rushers in the season, so he was not in this top 10 echelon of players starting in, but he had such a good year
if you put your fastest edge guy on Mekhi Becton, there's a chance he gets to the quarterback. I would be concerned.
Exactly. So that's why if you are going to put him on the edge, there's no way you put him at left tackle. You just put him right over at right tackle. But I totally agree, Jeremy. I think if you draft Mekhi Becton, he has to at some point in his career go to the inside because I don't think his weight is going to drop anytime soon.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to drop.
Yeah, Chris.
From that.
Chris, why Jedrick Wills here at 10?
I think it's because they need better pass protection more than run. That's what he does. I think that's what he does is they need pass protection. That's why I picked him. Though Andrew Thomas was very close with me. I was torn between those two at 10. And I lean toward Jedrick Wills, though Andrew Thomas would be a great pick as well for the Browns because they definitely need pass protection because they did run the football very well despite not really having great offensive line,
Mm-hmm.
They did run the ball a lot better than their pass protection. Nick Chubb was one of the top running backs in the league last year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Baker Mayfield needs to take fewer hits. Though I will say it's not all the sacks were not all the sacks were not on the offensive line. Baker Mayfield does scramble a little bit too much at times, and he kind of will force himself into sacks. But overall, yeah, they do need offensive line help. It's going to be an offensive lineman. I'm leaning toward Wills, but Thomas definitely would be a great pick as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I think actually, if Cleveland doesn't have, if Andrew Thomas is off the board, if Tristan Wirfs is off the board, which by the time Cleveland picks, you would expect at least one, if not both of them off the board. I think they go back here. I think they trade back. I think they're a good trade back candidate here. And they actually trade back with a team looking for a receiver. And this is when the receiver run truly begins for my mock. With the Jets possibly going receiver, with the Raiders possibly going receiver, with the Niners possibly going receiver, the Denver Broncos jump all of them from 15 to 10, and they take Jerry Jeudy at 10.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I think that Jerry Jeudy, I agree, I believe is the best receiver in this class. I could also see Denver going for Henry Ruggs here because he's a better fit for Courtland Sutton. Like him and Courtland Sutton aren't necessarily the same kind of guy. Henry Ruggs can kind of take the top off the defense, whereas Courtland Sutton's more of a route runner, which is probably why Jerry Jeudy they might go for Ruggs instead of Jeudy. But in my opinion, Judy's the best receiver in this draft. So if you have the option at all of them, you should go for Jerry Jeudy and then go from there. Talent, when you're at the top of the draft, talent is where you should be going for. You should not be drafting for need. You should be going more for the talent. And Denver here gets the most talented receiver in the draft, gets Drew Lock, a solid number one option, and they get their pick of the litter. And that's why I think it's not a very much of a jump. It's 15 to 10. It's very doable. Cleveland gets some draft capital in return. Denver has the picks to trade up, and Cleveland needs some picks later in the draft. So to me, it's a match made in heaven. I think that Denver trades up 5 spots to get Jerry Jeudy. On the collective draft, though, they do agree with Chris. With Jedrick Wills as the selection here, that Cleveland goes tackle. I do have Cleveland going tackle, but that's a little bit later in the draft. So now now we're out of the top 10. Now we go to number 11 with the Jets on the clock. The two of you did not agree on this pick for once. So with the Jets here, it's looking very much like it's going to be tackle or receiver. Now, Sean, why should the Jets go receiver like with what you put in your mock?
Well, they need it. They need everything. There's a couple teams that you just look at and you're like, okay, you just need to take somebody to help your team because it's not looking too bright. The Jets, if you look at their offensive line and receivers, it's absolutely terrible. But I do think the receivers need more help than anything. So I think taking a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who's young, he's a pound for pound. He's one of the strongest wide receivers in the draft. I think you have to take CeeDee Lamb, get a wide receiver, and then maybe possibly taking a tackle or a guard in the second round to help your offensive line. But I think you can't pass up on the wide receivers. Even though this draft class is really deep and you could find a really good wide receiver in the second round, I think you need to get one of the more talented wide receivers in CeeDee Lamb and just end the book, just draft him really quick and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think that, Jeudy comes off your board at 9. CeeDee Lamb was a good fit for the Jets here. I would expect the Jets they got Brashad Perriman, and at this point, Brashad Perriman is their best receiver. The fact that he was a wide receiver 3 last year, and now he's could be a wide receiver 1. Look, the Jets should take a receiver here. If not in the first round, definitely at least one in the second. No later than the third do they tap into the receiver class. But they're in a position right now to take one of the best receivers in the draft. So I could definitely see the Jets going receiver with their first pick. But Chris, you have them going tackle here. Why do they need a tackle?
Well, you need to protect Sam Darnold. You always need to protect that offensive line. It's not that good. I mean, it just has not been good for a while. It's been pretty bad for a while, and I'm actually thinking. I had the same thinking as you, Sean. It's just opposite. Like I think they take tackle now and then receiver second round because of the depth in the receiving class. I mean, and if Andrew Thomas is available at 11, obviously, I think that's a little bit. I think that'd be a little more worth it for them than a receiver because I have I have like a solution for what they could do. I think they could in a second round could take a guy like Michael Pittman Jr., somebody that Sam Darnold threw to at USC, so he has chemistry with him. And I think, and he was also a Blitnikoff finalist this last season. Had an amazing season playing with three different starting quarterbacks, and was a Blitnikoff finalist. So at USC, so I think that could be a big thing. That could be something that the Jets could look at, and maybe Sam Darnold could even vouch for something like that. Maybe as a second round pick.
I think it would be really funny if they took Gabe Davis. It's like the top two receivers are UCF guys. I think that would be kind of funny.
That would be cool.
Come on.
The New York Knights. Yeah, I mean, I think tackle is the move here. I think that they did spend a lot of money on that offensive line over the offseason, but because that offensive line was arguably the worst offensive line in the league last season. So they need to give Darnold some protection. And they need to be able to run for. They got Le'Veon Bell. I think a lot of people forget that Le'Veon Bell is in that backfield, and he could And this team was 7-9. Like in 79, yes, but they won a lot of their games in the second half of the season. Granted, their schedule was very top heavy in the first half, and then very easy in the second half. But this team, they have the pieces to possibly make noise. And I think that, with this newly crafted AFC East, maybe the Jets have a chance here if they really. Honestly, I think they need to change their philosophy. I think they need to get Le'Veon Bell back to where they had it in where he was in Pittsburgh, where it was Le'Veon Bell's offense. He was running the football. He was the leading receiver, and it wasn't even close. It was leading. He was the leading yard person, and it wasn't even close. So that's why I think you go line here. The collective agrees with that sentiment. They go offensive line. They go Andrew Thomas. I don't think they're going to get the chance to draft Andrew Thomas now, but I have Jedrick Wills.
Not.
I have Jedrick Wills here at 11. I think that he will be available at 11, and I think that could very well be the pick. It could also be CeeDee Lamb. It could also be Henry Ruggs. It could be Jerry Jeudy if he's there. That's something that, all three of those names came up for possible picks here at 11. But now he moves to number 12. And the Raiders, if the Jets need a receiver badly, then the Raiders need a receiver very badly. And all three of us have the Raiders going receiver here. Lamb, Ruggs, Jeudy. It could be one of those three guys. Obviously, we all have Jeudy off of our boards, and he's off of the collective board. But Ruggs and Lamb are still on the board here for the collective mock. Explain, Sean, why Ruggs could be the pick here.
Well, I think if I'm John Gruden, I like a fast receiver. He's a fast receiver. It's so simple. That's why he shot up draft boards. He was not a top, 15 pick. He maybe 15, but he's definitely shot up draft boards with his 40 time and the way that he can score, because he can score on really any route, like a short, intermediate, or deep route. His problem is he's not a really great route runner. It's completely different with Jerry Jeudy, where his route running is amazing, but Henry Ruggs is not the best route runner. But I think for the Raiders, like you said, they just need a receiver. They need help. I would have taken somebody different, but I know that the Raiders, if Henry Ruggs is there, they're going to take him. It's not even close. The only thing he really needs to work on is beating press, because just like Jerry Jeudy, Alabama really doesn't play a lot of teams that press them.
Mhm.
So it'll be really interesting to see how he, can run against a press team. Is he like a Tyreek Hill? I don't know, but we'll see. I definitely do think that the Raiders will take him if he's there at 12.
Yeah. I don't think Henry Ruggs is a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. He's more of a go up and get it kind of guy. And that's very valuable in the Raiders offense when you have Tyrell Williams, when you have Hunter Renfrow in the slot. I think Henry Ruggs probably is the best fit here, and the collective agreed Henry Ruggs is the pick here. But Chris, why could CeeDee Lamb be the pick in Las Vegas?
I think he's the pick because I think they need somebody that could just be that guy. And I think CD Lamb it has the capability to be that guy for whoever plays quarterback, whether it be Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota. We don't know who's. I think Derek Carr will be the starter at the start of the season, but I don't know if he'll end it. But I think CD Lamb is the pick here, though. I think they need a star wide receiver because they have a lot of solid receivers. They don't have that star,
Right.
and I think you get that with CeeDee Lamb to open up a new stadium, new city. Why not start out with a star?
Yeah, I think CeeDee Lamb has more wide receiver 1 potential than Henry Ruggs, so I could see that also being the reason here for the pick. But he doesn't go here to 12, but he does go to the Niners at 13. And honestly, I think with the Niners here, it's really between Ruggs and Lamb. They're going to take whoever is left out of those three. They traded up. They traded DeForest Buckner to get this pick. Some of the people on in the mocks thought Javon Kinlaw could be the pick here. I could also see them going Kinlaw. In fact, when that trade broke, that was kind of what my thought process was: is they're going to get Javon Kinlaw and they're going to be exactly where they are. And look, Javon Kinlaw has been one of the more interesting prospects here because he's been up and down so much. And he's probably worthy of a pick here. And the fact that he hasn't gone here is a bit of a stretch. I could see some teams trading up here in these early teens to go and get Javon Kinlaw. But nonetheless, Sean Green has a trade here at 13. It's not for Javon Kinlaw, but it's for a different person. So, Sean, I'm going to let you explain this trade you have.
Again, it's so hard. I hate drafts because, again, everybody knows I'm a Patriots fan, so it's so tough when this time comes around because you have no idea what we're going to do ever. So, yeah, I have the Patriots trading with the 49ers for pick number 13. The last couple of days, it looked like a possibility because, again, there's so many contingent things for this to happen. Number one, the Chargers and Dolphins can't take Tua. They have to not take Tua and let him fall. And two, Bill Belichick needs to actually like Tua. Nobody knows if the Patriots like Tua. The only reason I think that they do and they will trade and take him at 13 is Bill Belichick and Nick Saban's relationship. I think the Patriots probably have more information on Tua than any single team because they talk with Nick Saban more. So, yeah, this is kind of a dream scenario. I think Tua is a project for a year. Let him sit. Don't let him play. Be the next quarterback of the Patriots. But as the days go on, I'm thinking that this is less and less of a possibility. But a man can hope. A man can dream. So, yes, I have Tua Tagovailoa going number 13 to the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, Tua's got to go some point. So I'm glad that he's going now at 13. I remember 2 months ago in our February mock, we had him at 14 to the Bucks. And then a former Patriots quarterback decided to sign there. So
who are you talking about?
His name. I'm talking about Brian Hoyer.
Oh,
you didn't know
okay.
Brian Hoyer signed with a new team this offseason?
Yeah. He's going to be a really good starter this year. I heard.
But yeah, actually, and speaking of 14, the Bucks here are on the clock, and it's funny because the Bucks are also a team that has talked about possibly moving up for a tackle. They really want to protect their new quarterback. I won't name who that is. Obviously, the
Thank you.
Quote Brian Hoyer unquote. We'll just go with that.
Not named Jameis Winston.
Not named. Yes, Jameis Winston.
Thank God for their fans. Thank God for their fans.
Jameis Winston's replacement. They need someone to protect him. So Mekhi Becton is my pick here, and that's just because he's the best tackle available. I could see the Bucks trying to trade up. Maybe they're the ones that trade up with Arizona to get a tackle. But the thing with me is, I feel like Thomas and Wirfs are emerging as the top two tackles, and I do think that they're going to go pretty early. And if that's the case, then that basically takes away the reason why Tampa would trade up. And when Mekhi Becton is there at 14, yes, you would want to. I know that they want a guy that can definitely start there, and Mekhi Becton might not necessarily be that. But then again, like, who else would it be? I mean, maybe they trade out of this spot because they want someone with a little more value. But Mekhi Becton, I mean, he could have a really good career if he's in the right coaching scheme, and maybe that's in Tampa. But Sean, you also have them going tackle here. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think, like I said, I thought, like, I kind of flip-flopped, so I originally had Wills going to Cleveland, then I just said on this pod, Becton. I think you take whoever's available, so if Wills goes to Cleveland, then the Bucks are going to take Becton. They need help on the offensive line, so whoever's available, they're going to take. After that, the reason I don't see them trading down is you have Becton, and then there's a significant drop-off. I think the next best tackle is maybe Ezra Cleveland or Austin Jackson, and they could get him at, like, the later rounds, around 25, 26. So I think the Bucks take whoever's available. They need to protect that quarterback, Brian Hoyer, in the backfield, and hopefully make it so that quarterback doesn't get sacked 100 times this season.
All right, Brian Hoyer has his left tackle according to the collective, but Chris, you have a different vibe for these Bucks.
I went defense.
Yeah.
I went Clavon Chasen at 14 because, and the reason why I did that is because the defense is also still a weakness, if you want to pick a weakness on this team, though it did improve the second half of the season last year. I just look at the linebackers for this team, and Levante David has, I think, taken a little bit of a step back as of late. At times, he's taken a step back, and I think they need some depth at linebacker. I think this would be a great pick for them. They get somebody that's athletic that can rush the passer and play coverage. I think playing in a defense like LSU helps. It would translate well to Tampa as well. And it'll go along with their young defense. It's a very young defense.
LSU could have maybe 5 first-rounders here. At least.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Burrow, Chasen, Patrick Queen.
Fulton.
Christian Fulton, that's 4.
Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson, that's 5. That they could have 5 first-round picks here.
I mean, I'm not going to rule out Grant Delpit. I'm not going to rule that out.
Grant Delpit was a first-round pick in a lot of people's eyes. He's moved down some slots in recent mocks, but that's another person that also has been talked as a potential LSU first-rounder. But now we're here at 15. The Broncos are on the clock for you guys. Where do you have them going?
I'll go first. I think I have them going Javon Kinlaw. Yep. This is strictly, I do think they would rather have a receiver, but the receivers drop off until early 20s. So I think they take the best player available. He's an elite pass rusher, so even though he could go earlier than 15, if he's there at 15, I think the Broncos will snag him up.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Broncos, I have them obviously trading up. I mentioned that earlier, but I feel like the Broncos don't have like a specific need. I feel like receiver is that, but the Broncos pick here was one of the first picks that had a lot of people just going crazy off the board. Like Henry Ruggs was mocked here a couple of times. Javon Kinlaw had a couple mocks here. Mekhi Becton, a couple here. But ultimately, The person that the collective mock decided was C.J. Henderson, which I don't believe they're going to go corner here because they do have A.J. Boye, who is going to replace Chris Harris. I do think, and I think C.J. Henderson has been moving higher on draft boards. I don't know how the HTF analyst team, if they agree with that or not, and according to this, they clearly don't. But C.J. Henderson was the pick here. All of us have him going different places. But Chris, you have Mekhi Becton here. Explain why Becton.
Again, I think you need more offensive line help for a young quarterback, and also he's also, I think he's going to be really good in run defense as well, run blocking as well. He was really good at run blocking at Louisville. Louisville was a very good running team. He blocked well, and now you signed a guy like Melvin Gordon. You have a guy like Philip Lindsay as well. You have a 1-2 punch at running back. Getting a guy like Mekhi Becton could open up holes for Melvin Gordon or Philip Lindsay, and that could help a guy like Drew Lock. That helps with the play action, and you can get people open like Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I lean toward that.
Mm-hmm. Now, here I have Cleveland on the clock now because they traded 10 for 15. And this is probably, this is my most bizarre trade. I have Cleveland trading back again. And this will make sense later. Cleveland's had a journey in this draft already. But they trade back 6 slots to 21. And the Philadelphia Eagles, hungry for a wide receiver, have noticed that, and they've tried moving up here at some point. They're worried that teams might jump them between now and 21 for Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson's someone who has flown up mock drafts lately to the point where I think this is, and look, I think this is the highest Justin Jefferson could go. I don't see him being a top 14 pick. 15 is the first spot that I could see him go. I could see him going to Denver if Denver decides to keep the pick and the 3 receivers, Judy, Ruggs, and Lamb, are all taken. Justin Jefferson has done a lot of work for himself to move up, and at first in like our early mocks, he was, maybe he's a first-round pick. It's getting to the point where he's definitely a first-round pick. I feel like there's 4 receivers that you can tab that are definite first-round picks, and I think Justin Jefferson is a very sturdy wide receiver 4 in this draft, and I think that's going to land him in the first round in this draft, and I think it's going to land him as high as 15 to Philly in this pick. Philly needs a receiver really badly. I know you guys like the fit because you guys have him going later to Philly, but I think that's how much Philly needs a receiver. That's how much they really like Justin Jefferson. They're willing to trade up 6 spots at 15 to go and get him.
Jeremy, I just think your mock draft's crazy, and if this happens tonight, then we're going to be in for a real good show.
Absolutely. The thing is, this is not going to happen tonight, and it's still going to be crazy. But it's just a scenario that I thought of. That's kind of what I decided to make my mock about. It was more about hypothetics rather than fits for teams. Obviously, that's not really what the collective is about. The collective is more about players and where they may land in the draft. But for me, Justin Jefferson is someone that I think the Eagles are going to be hunting for tonight.
Well, here's the thing. I was going to talk about it later when I have the Eagles taking Justin Jefferson. The problem why I don't see the Eagles trading up necessarily is if you look at the teams from 16 to 20, I don't see them taking a wide receiver. You've got the Falcons, Dallas, Miami, and then the Raiders and Jags. I just don't see them taking a wide receiver because 2 of them already took one.
Yeah.
I do think, personally, in my opinion, I like Justin Jefferson more than Henry Ruggs. So if I was a GM, I would be taking Justin Jefferson earlier, but I can see why Henry Ruggs is such a hot commodity with his speed. But I think with more of an overall wide receiver, Justin Jefferson's the pick, and he'll make the Eagles a really great team.
That trade is more so similar to what Miami's trying to do at the top of the draft, where they're trying to trade up just so nobody else has the chance to. And
I can totally understand.
That's similar to what it is. Like Minnesota is in striking distance. They need a receiver. They could go up and they could go and get Justin Jefferson at 15 if they wanted to. That's really the idea behind the pick. But let's move on to 16, where the Falcons are on the clock. This is where Javon Kinlaw finally falls. And that's what the collective has decided. That's what Chris has decided. So, Chris, talk about why Kinlaw is at 16.
They need help everywhere on defense. They have literally cleaned house. They cleaned house on defense. Like, Vic Beasley's gone. Desmond Trufant's gone. I mean, you're having to just replace people. I think Javon Kinlaw is very, very underrated, and I think will be a steal, especially right here, because, I mean, he is all over the place on the defensive line, get after the quarterback. He's strong, very hard to block. I mean, everyone's seeing his, squatting, like, ridiculous squat he did. So he's very fast off the edge, too. And I think this would be the best. I think this would be a great fit for him, too. Though C.J. Henderson would also be a great fit as well, because obviously you need to replace Desmond Trufant. But I'm gonna think that the defensive line is what you would need, because if you can get after, I've always thought if you can get after the quarterback, you can get away with having a kind of like average or mediocre secondary if you get after the quarterback.
Right.
You can get away with it.
Yeah. And I also have Javon Kinlaw going 16, but with the trade earlier made with Atlanta moving up to 8 to get Jeff Okudah, Atlanta's here at 16. Not necessarily the biggest position of need for the Cardinals here, but given the fact that all the top 4 tackles are gone, he's the best player available. He goes 16 to Arizona. But C.J. Henderson is also someone that we talked about. And Sean, this is your pick right here.
Yeah, I think corner's their number one need, in my opinion. And it's unfortunate because there's not that many great corners in this draft. There's really 2. You have the obvious choice of Jeffrey Okudah, and then you have C.J. Henderson. So I think Dallas and Atlanta will be fighting over C.J. Henderson. I don't know why. He is a really good corner. I wouldn't necessarily fight over him. If he's there and you're a corner-needy team, I would take him, just like Atlanta's there, and they take him easy. He's got great size and speed, and he can mirror really any wide receiver he gets matched up with. The only bad thing about him is he's not that great of a tackler, so that would be something that, he's got the perfect coach that can help him with that. But I think the best thing for Atlanta would be take the corner now, because you're not going to find a much better one in the other rounds.
Right. I think that this draft is filled with a lot of decent corners. I don't think there's a lot of great corners in this draft. I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of shutdown corners coming out of this draft class, in the years to come. I think that Okudah is probably number 1. C.J. Henderson, maybe, C.J. Henderson 2, but it's a good margin. So I could see why Atlanta wants to be aggressive in trying to get that top 2, because I do think that 2 and 3, there's just as much of a gap between 1 and 2. And I think that Atlanta, sitting at 16, thinks that there's no chance they're going to get Okudah. So that's why they're so poignant on getting Henderson. I can't believe that word came out of my mouth right now. I didn't even know it was a mouth.
Pretty impressive.
But, and I think I even used it correctly in a sentence. But
you did. You did.
I'm very impressed with myself. So now we're at number 17, and the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock. Now this was a bit of a weird selection. A lot of different guys here, but ultimately the collective mock decided on K'Lavon Chaisson going 17 to Dallas. Chaisson is the second best edge rusher in this draft. So I can understand why Dallas wants wants to go chasing here. I've seen him mocked on several Dallas Cowboys mock drafts recently. But that's absolutely none of where we believe Dallas is going with this. You know, Byron Jones left for Miami, so C.J. Henderson makes a lot of sense. I can see why, Chris, you went with C.J. Henderson. Sean, you went a different route, though. Can you explain that route?
Yeah, I went Xavier McKinney. He's actually one of my top 5 favorite players in this draft. I just think he reminds me he's obviously not Isaiah Simmons, but just he can do a bunch of different things. He can play deep safety. He can play linebacker at times. He can even play in the slot. I think the Cowboys, they don't need much help on defense. Their defense is really good, but that backside is the problem. That's why they would love C.J. Henderson to fill that need. But I think with Xavier McKinney, you get a depth piece that can easily be put into a starter, if not this year, then next year. And he's just a freak of nature. He plays 100 miles an hour for the whole game, 100% of the time. And I love that in a player. So I think if Dallas can get Xavier McKinney here at number 17, I think it would be a steal for the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. And, surprise, surprise, I have another trade.
Wow.
It's a trade city.
And this time, Sean, your New England Patriots are on the clock.
Oh, I'm excited. Okay, cool.
Okay, so as people may have forgotten by now, only one quarterback has been taken off of my board, and it was Tua. Two, because Joe Burrow is still part of this draft, guys, FYI. But the third and fourth quarterbacks are about to go, and with Miami at 18 getting their choice, New England says, not so fast, Brian Flores. I'm still your daddy. And they decide to jump up one pick before Miami so that they get their choice between Jordan Love and Justin Herbert. And I do believe that Jordan Love is the pick here at 17. I do think, like you mentioned, Sean's already upset. I already knew you'd be upset. But I think Jordan Love's ceiling is higher than Justin Herbert's. And that's I think Sam Darnold as a comp for Justin Herbert is absolute gold. I think that's exactly who he is. And I don't want to draft Sam Darnold. I don't know why he went number 3 2 years ago in front of Josh Allen, in front of Lamar Jackson. He should not have been the second quarterback taken off that board. But I think that Jordan Love is, again, people are looking at Jordan Love as a developmental project, and that's someone that, the Patriots could mold into someone that they can possibly see as the future. Whether Jarrett Stidham decides to work or not. The thing with Jordan Love is I think his price, someone's going to trade up to get Jordan Love. I don't think Jordan Love's going to fall into someone's lap. I think that teams are going to, but that's the thing is, it's weird when you have early round quarterbacks that you aren't going to start early on, because you're like, oh, you're gonna use a really high pick on a guy that you're not even gonna play. That to me is the difficult part. But I think the demand for Jordan Love is really high. I think that New Orleans is interested in him. I think that teams could trade back up into the first round and get him. And I think that if New England really wants him, they're going to have to trade up for him. And I think that although like I've said before, my trades are just hypotheticals. Very rarely do I think that any of these trades will happen. If any of these trades do happen, though, tomorrow, I want my credit, okay? If Jordan Love is a Patriot by the end of tonight, I want full credit that I said it first here on this podcast. But
absolutely,
I think it could. I think there is a less than 0% chance it happens. Or excuse me, more than 0% chance that it happens. Somewhere in between 0 and 2%. We'll go with that.
If you want my thoughts, I can take a crack at it for you on your trade.
I kind of know what you're going to say, but I'll let you go ahead.
No, and here's my thing, okay? Mm-hmm. Jordan Love, I think everybody can tell that he's a project. It's a pretty obvious thing to see. My biggest issue with Jordan Love is I get his like 2018 season was incredible. He had an incredible season. I don't care what weapons you have. If you throw 20 touchdowns and 17 interceptions, if you become a New England Patriot, you got to find a way to cut that down. And because that's a big issue for me. I know that the Patriots were even looking at the FIU quarterback. Not even going to think of his name, but his touchdown to interception ratio is it's terrible. So I get the untapped potential of Jordan Love, and I can see why teams want him. But I think half the reason why Jordan Love is going up these draft boards is people just want another Patrick Mahomes. And there's no other guy like Patrick Mahomes. That's the only issue that I see. But I could totally see somebody trade, like somebody's going to take him in the top 20, and if he doesn't, he's going to slip in the mid 20s.
Jordan Love is a top 20 pick?
I don't, but I think somebody will take him as a top 20 pick because, again, he's not making out of the top 20 because the Raiders are at 19. He's not getting – if he's still on the board at 19, he's getting taken. But no, I don't think he's a first-round quarterback. I think he's an early second because, again, he's a project. I don't think a project that is not going to play for you for a year and a half should be taken so high.
Yeah. You know, the guy that he reminds me of, not necessarily comparing players here, but situationally, he reminds me a lot of where Drew Lock was last year, where Drew Lock was not a top quarterback that teams were considering a first-round pick on, but teams were considering him in the second and considering trading up for him. Denver did that and had no intention on starting Drew Lock in week 1. But then again, he was able to find his way into the starting lineup late in the season and proved enough to be worthy of the opportunity to win that job moving forward. And now we're entering 2020, and Drew Lock is the likely quarterback of the future for the Denver Broncos. I think if things go right for Jordan Love, that's where he wants to be. He wants to be in a position where he could possibly start in 2 years, 3 years, and be in a position to do that. I think if Jordan Love goes to New England, he should be very happy, especially this high.
Yeah, he would. Are you kidding me? That's like a $1 million man. Are you like, come on?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a big raise.
Now, the Dolphins are on the clock here at 18. And this, again, was a pick that nobody really agreed on. But ultimately, the collective decided on a tackle here. They went with Josh Jones. Josh Jones is someone that was jumping up boards in the middle of the draft process between February and March. He hasn't been as high on mocks this go around in the 11th hour here, but given the fact that Miami has 3 picks here, they have to take a tackle. And what are the chances that Miami walks away from tonight's draft without a tackle? Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, it's 0.0% chance. 0.0.
Yeah.
They're going to take a tackle at some point. Yeah, they could easily take one here at 18. I have them taking one with 26 if they keep that pick.
Right.
But yeah, I could totally see them jumping to take one here.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, you have a tackle here, but explain Austin Jackson as this pick for the Dolphins at 18.
I think he's the best available at this time. I think he's a little bit better than Josh Jones or someone like that. I think at this pick, I think at this one, because also we don't know what they're going to do with their trade, if they're going to trade these picks or not. This is just kind of what right now. Though I would not be surprised if they put these picks in a package, try to put in a package. But right now I have Austin Jones to get their offensive lineman help for the quarterback that I think they're going to get, Justin Herbert. Get him protection, get him on the blind side, so he's like a hit on the blind side. Because Justin Herbert had one. Because at Oregon, Justin Herbert had the best offensive lineman in the country. The protected blind side. So you need to get that for a guy like Herbert because he's used to having someone elite. So you need to at least help him with that. But this could go either way.
Yeah.
Like picking at 18, it can go either way. but offensive tackle, I think is right here makes the most sense. I don't think they go like I don't think they try to go out for a wide receiver or try to go defense. I think they're set on an offensive lineman. I think they're set on offensive lineman, quarterback with their first 2 picks.
Yeah.
The order, it's yet to be determined, but I think that's kind of where they're going.
And ironically enough, I have Justin Herbert going here at 18. It's funny how we all have Justin Herbert going to the Dolphins, just at very different positions. 3, 5, and 18 here. Let's move on to 19, where the Vegas Raiders back on the clock. Again, a difficult position here. Chris, though you were part of the majority, the median of the HTF collective draft, so explain why AJ Epinesa is here at 19.
I think they definitely need to get some pass rush because they were one of the worst pass rushing teams in the league last year. Mm-hmm. Like they could not get after the quarterbacks. That led to bad secondary. This led to terrible defense. That led to a bad season. Getting someone like AJ Epinesa, which he was high, he dropped after the combine because he didn't have a great combine. But I have him here because I don't look all at the combine. I look at tape, and on tape he is exceptional. He's an exceptional pass rusher. He can be quick off the edge. He can beat some of these tackles. I mean, Big Ten defensive. He was one of the best players in the Big Ten that wasn't named. He's the best player in the Big Ten, not named Chase Young on defense. I mean. Mm-hmm. So and especially in his last game against a pretty good team in USC that has a good offensive line, he was all over that team. He was all over the place. They could not stop him, and I just look at tape. I like tape more than combine. That's why that's why I don't have him dropping as far.
Yeah, and I guess the collective agree. AJ Epinesa is the pick here. I have a different AJ going at 19, and it's AJ Terrell, corner out of Clemson. You know how much John Gruden loves big name programs, especially Clemson. He drafted multiple guys from Clemson last year, and Clemson corners have been consistently been first round picks for a long time in Dabo Swinney's tenure as coach there. AJ Terrell's the next one up on that list. I think that again, we talked about Vegas earlier. They need everything. And corner is something that might not necessarily be their biggest need, but given who's left on the board, I think he's the best corner available. And I think they need to address the secondary at some point during this draft, some point early as well. So that's why AJ Terrell's the pick here. Nobody agreed with me, but that's okay. We'll let John Gruden prove me right tomorrow. But Sean, you have a very hot take here at 19. So explain that.
I don't think it's it could be a hot take to some, but I think John Gruden's going to do what John Gruden does best, and that's see how players really are. I think everybody's like, oh, Jordan loved this, Jordan loved that. And I think there's really like this, oh, we love Derek Carr thing going around in Las Vegas. I just don't buy it. I think you're going to need to find somebody to, be the next quarterback in Las Vegas. And I don't think it's Marcus Mariota. I don't think they want to pay Derek Carr. So I think, hey, you see what Jordan Love has. If you bring him in and you can see he's going to be the next starter, then just let Derek Carr play out his contract, and then you can plug in Jordan Love. Again, my only issue, I just don't love his 2019 season. I think he reminds me a lot of Patrick Mahomes with the throws he can make. He can make the deep balls. He can make all the throws. He has athleticism. But my problem is, if he's on a team where there's only one receiver, how is he going to do? Is he just going to make some crazy throws and throw it into traffic and get picked off? Which, in the NFL, if you do that, you become Jameis Winston and you become a backup. So I do think the Raiders could go anywhere here, but right now I have them going quarterback.
I actually would be a great pick because you need your own. I think John Gruden wants to draft his own quarterback, That's what he does. He did quarterback camps, so he knows how to study quarterbacks very well. So yeah, I think this would be a, I'm not gonna say perfect quarterback for him, but it would be a one that he would love to have fun with and be creative with, and take a year or two to do that.
Yeah, I like the idea of Jordan Love in Vegas. I just to me, I don't think Derek Carr is the future there either, and I think that he knows that. I think the Raiders know that. But if that's the case, then don't go and spend all that money on Marcus Mariota. And that's also the thing. And Mariota, they do like Mariota, and the reason why Mike Mayock had Marcus Mariota as his number one quarterback in 2015. So, and that's, the thing with Mike Mayock is I think he had a very good draft last year with the Raiders. I think he made some very strong picks. But I think that the disadvantage is people know his tendencies. People know what he likes, and they can study that based off of all of the years and years that he was an analyst. And now they have to kind of do that. So, I mean, that could be an issue that could plague the Raiders down the line. But with this one, I think that they're still looking to build around their team, and especially that defense. And knowing that they go offense in at 12, they probably decide to go defense at 19. So that's why I have a defense at 19. So we'll move on to 20. It'll be interesting to see what the Raiders do. I think that they're one of the more interesting teams for this draft as well, and teams aren't necessarily seeing that. But they have a lot of picks, and 2 in the first, 2 in the top 20. They're the only team to have multiple picks in the top 20 other than the Dolphins. So I'm excited to see what the Raiders do. I think that they could walk away as a big winner tomorrow if they play their cards right. But another team that has a second pick in the draft, the Jags. The Jags are on the clock at 20 again, and for the first time, I think since the Washington pick, I think we all agree on this pick here. So Sean, why is Kenneth Murray the pick here at 20 for the Jags?
Yeah, some people go like they don't know who the best linebacker in the draft is. Again, I think Chris said it best. I look at tape, and I think Kenneth Murray made an Oklahoma defense that was terrible the year before a million times better. He was the Oklahoma defense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes that could be to a disadvantage. He can play out of control and crazy sometimes, but he's just trying to do so much at one time. He can tackle anybody in the open field. He's one of the best athletes, and he can get to wherever the ball is, so he can make the open field tackle with the running back in the backfield. The Jaguars are going to be losing a lot of defensive players. Yannick Ngakwe's going bye-bye. So I think this is a great pick for the Jaguars to kind of just get back on track and draft a stud that, in my opinion, is the best linebacker in the draft.
Yeah, they definitely need to address linebacker. I feel like every year they have to address linebacker. It seems like even though they got Josh Allen last year, who was a very strong pick at 7, but now that Ngakwe's gone, Dante Fowler was in, now he's gone. It seems like they just recycle their pass rushers, and it's a shame. But Kenneth Murray would be a very strong pick here. I think that we can all agree that that's a good pick here, and that's what
it kind of seems like when a linebacker, like you said, when a linebacker's contract is up, and I meant I do think he's the second best. Isaiah Simmons obviously is number 1, but it seems like every time the Jags a contract's about to come up, they don't want to pay anybody, so they will be grateful to trade away a great linebacker or defensive player just to get a rookie that they don't have to pay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Jags are, I really cannot remember the last player they paid. Like, they didn't pay Jalen Ramsey. I mean, they paid Blake Bortles some money. They did pay him a little bit after that season. But getting back to Kenneth Murray, I think he is arguably the best tackler in this draft, in my opinion. I think because he's just a tackling machine. If I'm not mistaken, it was a game against Army 2 years ago. He had like 27 tackles or something in one game. It was utterly ridiculous. So I mean, He knows where the ball is. He's a ball hawker. He knows where the ball is. He doesn't miss tackles either. And I think that is why he's the best non-Isaiah Simmons linebacker in this draft.
The last Jaguar to make it past their rookie contract, their 5 years, was Tyson Alu in 2010. So yeah, it's been a while since the Jags have had a chance to get a guy on a second contract. I think hopefully they get it with Josh Allen. I think that he has a good chance to be re-upped after his deal, but there's a possibility that Leonard Fournette could get traded at some point this weekend. That the Jags are a team that we should all keep an eye on this weekend. Kenneth Murray was also the collective's pick up 20. So Kenneth Murray, 20, the Jags. He's also from my hometown, so shout out to Kenneth Murray. 21 here is where the Eagles take Justin Jefferson here, where you guys have Justin Jefferson. But this is where I have Cleveland finally picking somebody in this draft. And this is someone that has been a huge climber in the last several days. And it's the 5th offensive tackle off the board. Ezra Cleveland goes to Cleveland and is a member of the Browns offensive line. Now, Mike Garofalo tweeted just a couple minutes ago from when we were recording this podcast that Ezra Cleveland is a lock to be a first-round pick. And we didn't really see this until the March mock, and some people had him very late in the first. There's a chance that Ezra Cleveland could be a top 20 pick here. And it could be, it could even be at 10. I don't think it's going to be that high, but Ezra Cleveland is going to go early and is going to go in the first round, quite possibly in the first half of this first round. So just keep an eye on Ezra Cleveland for tonight, and keep an eye on the Browns, because the Browns have been the team that's the most interested in Ezra Cleveland, offensive tackle out of Boise State. So Ezra Cleveland is probably the one name you really need to keep an eye on for people that haven't been following the draft as much in these last couple of days. Now we go to 22. The Vikings are on the clock. Their first pick of the draft. This is originally Buffalo's pick that they got in the Stephon Diggs trade. Trayvon Diggs is available here. Do we see the first brother-for-brother trade in NFL history here?
I do not have that. Unfortunately, I do not have that. I have the Vikings taking Christian Fulton at 22. I mean, I think that is clearly the position they're in most need of, because yes, they lost Stephon Diggs, but you still have Adam Thielen to throw to, and at corner you've lost Xavier Rhodes, lost Trey Waynes. You lost 2 starting corners. You need to reload at corner. And I think Christian Fulton would be a great addition to this. He's great at LSU, good in man-to-man. I think that he could be plugged in as a starter week 1. I think he will definitely be a starter week 1, especially if he goes to Minnesota. And I didn't do the Diggs thing because I don't think that's right. And I'll say Christian Fulton's better. Mm-hmm. Slightly better than Trayvon Diggs. I just don't think that does not seem right. You trade your brother to draft your younger brother.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a good PR move for the Vikings to, Stephon Diggs left on sour terms, and you go and you get his brother. I don't think his brother would be very happy about that. Fulton is the pick here for me and for the collective as well, but they do need a wide receiver as well. And Sean, that's where you have them going at 22. Can you explain why Denzel Mims has been flying up draft boards and could be the 6th receiver off the board at 22 for the Vikings?
Well, first, I didn't even think about Trayvon Diggs, but that actually is hilarious. That would be my moment of the night if the Vikings took him. But yeah, I do think they go receiver here. I think this year more than other years, just because the wide receivers are so deep, teams that are wide receiver needy are just going to take them when they can get them. Mims has been shooting up draft boards because I think the Senior Bowl helped him tremendously. He dominated the top corners at the Senior Bowl, and he does remind me a lot of Stephon Diggs. So the Combine, along with the Senior Bowl, I think helps the Vikings just say, hey, let's replace Stephon Diggs with Denzel Mims and make him the second wide receiver behind Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I mean, Denzel Mims is also someone that people are seeing as a potential late first addition. I'm not buying the hype behind him. I don't know. I mean, clearly he's got something going for him. Chris, you have him at 23 to the Patriots. Why Mims to the Patriots at 23?
Well, I think they definitely need some depth at wide receiver because I know they did draft N'Keal Harry last year. He didn't play much because of injuries. I get that, but Julian Edelman's getting a little up there in age. He's had some injury problems as of late as well. I think getting a little bit of depth to getting a wide receiver to help whoever plays quarterback. Because I mean, we don't know who's actually going to be the week one starter.
Mm-hmm.
But whoever plays quarterback, they need getting a wide receiver. And Denzel Mims has been, like Sean said, he has skyrocketed up boards. But a lot of wide receivers have been skyrocketing as well. I think this would be a good fit, a good system for him to be in as well that you could thrive in more. And I also watched him a little bit last year. I watched a little bit of Baylor games. I also love his route running. His route running is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's underrated.
Yeah.
It's really good. He has good route runner, good hands, and good size.
I think though that there is a decent drop between wide receiver 4 Justin Jefferson and wide receiver 5, whether that's Denzel Mims or whether that's Jalen Reagor, or whether that's T. Higgins or whoever, Michael Pittman. I think what we're going to see is those guys are going to start going. It could even be late in the first, but definitely early in the second. I think is where we're going to start to see a lot of receivers come off the board, and that's usually how wide receivers go. Is there the mid rounds? There's usually just like boom, 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 wide receiver runs, and we're getting one in the first round this year, which doesn't happen a whole lot, but that's just a testament to how deep this wide receiver class is. Sean, you and I traded up with the Patriots here at 23. You did it with the Niners, so the Niners are on the clock for you here at 23. Where do you think they go?
I honestly hate this pick. Again, this was literally a trade because the Patriots traded with the 49ers. I think if the 49ers are going to trade one of their picks, it's not going to be to get another pick in the first round. But if this trade did happen, I would have them taking A.J. Epinesa. Like Chris said, he was not great at the Combine. He definitely hurt his stock. But he is a great pass rusher. They can make up for the loss on the defense. So I would have them going A.J. Epinesa here.
Mm-hmm.
If the Patriots still had this pick, I do not think they would take a wide receiver just because, like you guys said, N'Keal Harry did get taken last year, and I don't think Bill Belichick will make another first-round wide receiver choice until he realizes if N'Keal Harry will pan out, because that will really be the tell of if he takes wide receivers in the first round, if they work out. But if the Patriots were here, I think they would take A.J. Epinesa as well.
Yeah. Epinesa is someone that I think could also be the pick here, but obviously I traded up with New England. This is where I have Dallas picking. Now, the reason why I made that trade was more so to prove that I think that Dallas could trade down from 17. Because there's this, like, to me, this mock that I have is so, like, obvious that people are missing it. And I don't see why more people have not put Cesar Ruiz to the Cowboys on their mock. Because Travis Frederick just retired. You have a big giant hole at center. Why not get the best center in the draft? To me, it's almost too obvious for it not to happen. Dallas has talked about going in the front 7, but you have the potential to fortify your offensive line once again. I think Cesar Ruiz is going to be a long-term starter in this league. makes a lot of sense in Dallas. I think that Ruiz here, and a lot of people are sleeping on him because interior lineman, it's a very weak draft for interior linemen. But that being said, that only makes the reasoning for getting Cesar Ruiz that much stronger because the drop off between Ruiz and Lloyd Cushenberry, who's the second center off the board, Lloyd Cushenberry is going to be a third, fourth round pick possibly. You have Cesar Ruiz, who's a potential second round, first rounder. You go and you get him here at 23 if you're the Cowboys.
I actually don't have Cesar Ruiz going in my first round at all. I'm not the biggest fan of him, and that's not saying he won't go. I think that actually is a great choice for the Cowboys, Jeremy. I think that actually is a really good pick for them. Personally, and this is just me being, stubborn, I'm not the biggest fan of Cesar Ruiz just because when people sack, he does get bull rushed a lot, and that's kind of when I'm looking at the Cowboys offensive line, I feel like the problem would be that they would just put their two best pass rushers right in the middle and just kill the guy. He doesn't have a lot long arms either, so he doesn't really fit the mold that I think the Cowboys would go, or any team in the first round preferably. But I honestly think if that happened tomorrow night, based off of what you said, it wouldn't be a shock to me. It'd actually be like, that's a solid pick for what they need.
Yeah, it's a need pick for them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to the second half of the first round, it becomes more of a need based draft. Whereas I think the first half of the first round is usually just take the best guy you got, regardless of position. I mean, sometimes position matters, but you can select multiple positions if there's a better player at one position that you might not necessarily need as much as the other. But I think we're now at the point in the mid-20s where need does matter. And we go to number 24 here, where the Saints are on the clock. They need front seven help. So, Sean, where do you have them going here at 24?
Yeah, I think they get a pretty good steal with Clavon Chasen. Speed to power around the edge. He can really play against any competition. Like I said, I just think with that LSU offense, they had so many great defensive players that, yeah, he was one of the best in their defense, but I just personally thought Kenneth Murray did more with what the defense had. He made that defense elite, whereas with Chasen, the defense was already elite. That's what LSU is known for. He had an ACL problem, not this year, but last year. So that's something to keep an eye on. It obviously didn't really affect him. He had 6.5 sacks and 60 tackles. I think that could really help the Saints defense. Their offense, which I see a lot of people saying like, oh, are they going to go wide receiver? I'm shocked that that's like a thing. I don't understand that logic. I think Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Thomas and Traquan Smith is enough. Like, you don't need to like make every team like cry themselves to sleep because they can't get any wide receivers. So I think they do go a linebacker here, and Clavon Chasen is one of the best athletes in this draft. So they get a steal here at 24.
Yeah, I think Clavon Chasen would be a great addition for the Saints, and he doesn't have to travel very far from LSU to New Orleans. And LSU is where Chris and I decided to go also with this pick. Chris and I went with the same guy. Chris, you want to do the honors and reveal this pick for us?
Yeah, we went with the other linebacker in Patrick Queen. I think that'd be a good fit for them. I mean, he's good at tackling in space. You can also do a little bit of coverage. He can actually cover. It's some good pass coverage when it's like those intermediate routes and like in the middle of the field ish. And I think that'd be good for them because I did see some. There's been a drop off in their defense lately. Like 2 years ago, actually one of the top defenses in the league, but now it's kind of been like a middle of the pack defense. I mean, they dropped off a little tackling. I mean, their coverage has been not as good. So getting this to fill that void at the linebacker position, I think that's what they definitely need.
Yeah, I think Patrick Queen makes a lot of sense here. They need some defensive help. But another route that the collective draft has actually taken is this is where Jordan Love goes. And, Drew Brees signing that contract with NBC Sports makes a lot of people think that this is going to be it for him. So there's chatter about, there's chatter about maybe them going for a quarterback here. I do think that the Saints will walk away from this weekend with a quarterback. I just don't know if it's going to be with their first pick, especially with a team that has a lot of different needs. The thing with the Saints, though, is they were so good last year. They were one of the best teams in the league, but yet people forget that they didn't even win a playoff game, and that just makes you think yes, they're very good, but they still have a long way to go before getting to where they want to be. And if this is the last year of Drew Brees, this might be their last chance to actually go out and get it. And there's a lot of different, positions that have been mocked to the Saints. I've seen front seven, I've seen quarterback, I've seen wide receiver, I've seen a lot of different positions that the Saints could go for. And I think there's a lot of different routes that the Saints go. I think, though, that front seven is the most ideal for them just because that fulfills their greatest need. And they can go and get a quarterback later in the second and third round. They can go and they can sign a quarterback next offseason. I think that there's so many quarterbacks. They could go out, honestly, let Jameis Winston sit behind Drew Brees this year, and then let him take over next year. Or find ways to go. I just think Jordan Love is an option. I do think that it's not a terrible pick if that's where they do go. But the Saints need defensive help before anything else. So I would expect them to fulfill that need before going anywhere else in this draft.
I agree with that because I mean, Jordan Love being behind one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, you sit behind him a year, that would definitely help you. And having receivers and having wide receivers like that, he never had that talent ever at Utah State, so he may be able to thrive in that.
All right, let's move on to number 25 here. The Vikings are on the clock. I really wanted to make a trade here. I really did, because to me, I don't see why Minnesota would keep both of these picks just because they're so.
You didn't think you had enough?
I was trying. I was trying to look for scenarios. I was trying to look for scenarios. I was trying to look for teams that would trade out, that would trade back into the first round here. 25 though was a bit steep, a bit of a steep price for teams to trade into. So I ultimately decided against it. Caleb Von Chasen, the fact that he should be gone before 25. I'm surprised that I kept him on this board for this long. But I think that's because I decided to get pretty cute and I decided to go for a bunch of different things. So that's probably why he's still on the board at 25. But Minnesota could use some front seven help. Everson Griffin is no longer on the team. So getting a replacement for him should be one of their biggest needs to begin this draft. But wide receiver is also important for them. Chris, that's where you have them going.
Yeah. A lot of people had this person out of the first round at the beginning of this had him in the first round, but I brought T. Higgins back at 25. I think he's dropped off a lot. I think I don't believe it's his fault. I believe it's just because other players are rising. But I am not gonna. The tape doesn't lie. T. Higgins was just as good. Maybe he was potentially the number one receiver last year on Clemson. I mean, Justin Ross obviously was on there. I thought T. Higgins was the best wide receiver on that team last year. And tape does not lie. He has great hands, great route running. I mean, touchdown machine. I just think that tape, I look at that tape and I'm just like, I will take the tape over other people in the combine any day. And I believe he is a first round talent. And I think they can get a steal. It's almost like a steal. I mean, because he's fallen like the 40s in some people's in mock drafts. I just believe this would be a really good replacement, a good number, a good replacement for Stephon Diggs. I think that would be a perfect fit for him. And they, it's almost like they didn't lose anybody. I feel like eventually Kirk Cousins will have another target, a big target, and yeah,
Yeah. So wide receiver, cornerback. It's very difficult, I think, to figure out what the Vikings are going to do just because they have two picks so close to each other that they could do either or. Like if they go corner in the first pick, they could go receiver in the first pick, go corner second. They could go front seven first and corner second. They can go. They have a lot of options here. But Sean, you actually have what the collective decided. So explain why Austin Jackson goes to 25 and the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, to be honest, Chris, I actually love that pick. I don't have T. Higgins in my first round, and I'm actually kind of shocked. It's almost like I didn't even think about it. He's one of my favorites, so that would be a good pick if they didn't go wide receiver at 22. I personally think it's like a secondary need. Their offensive line is more of a secondary need, and Austin Jackson is a top 6 offensive lineman in this draft. I think, like you said, they start to drop off as you get later in the first round. But this guy's pretty good for being 6'5" and 322. The only problem is he's raw. So I don't know if they can start him right off the bat. I don't think he would be playing left tackle or right tackle. I think you could easily put him as a backup at any of the positions on the offensive line and see how he works out. And when he gets hurt, he really recovers quickly, which for an offensive lineman, it's really what you want. Because if an offensive lineman goes down, if you can sit out a game and come back, that's what you want, because you don't want to be without an offensive lineman for the whole season or for more than a couple weeks. So I think this is the pick right here. They could go Gross Matos as well if they want an edge rusher, but I go offensive lineman here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, offensive line is definitely also a position of need for the Vikings. Austin Jackson, I think, could be the pick here, but not. I think they have bigger needs here. I think corner and receiver, they're 1-2, 1A, 1B, if you will. And the thing though with me is I feel like corner is their top need, so they're definitely getting out of the first round with a corner. And I think there are several corners that are going to go in the first. I think it all in all, I have about maybe 5 corners in the first round. Whereas receivers, I feel like once you get to Jefferson, it's very unlikely a receiver's going to go again. I think they're all going to go in the second. And with tackle, it's similar as well. I think that there's 5 offensive tackles, maybe 6 if you put Josh Jones in there. I think Austin Jackson is OT7. If there are 7 tackles drafted in this first round, that'll be incredible. But I just don't know if that's how many tackles are going to go in the first round. But let's move on to 26. So, Sean, this is where DeAndre Swift goes in the mock. I skipped you on Swift on the last one because you had Swift going 18 to Miami. So we agree on the fit. And it seems like we agree on who the Dolphins will take. It's just a difference of opinion on when they'll take them. But why is DeAndre Swift a good fit for Miami?
Well, they need a running back, and I think it's really a toss-up between Swift and Jonathan Taylor. Who do you want? And I think if I look at kind of the style of offense that Miami wants to play, they want a guy that can run and catch the ball. And I think DeAndre Swift is the best at both of those combined. He can catch the ball and make up a bunch of extra yards. He can also be a speedy, quick running back if you just want to run the ball. And Miami doesn't have any running backs. So I think DeAndre Swift would be the perfect fit. I do have him going a little bit higher at 18. And it probably won't happen just because of how the draft looks like it's going to play out. But I do think he ultimately ends up with the Dolphins because this year is not that great of a running back class to where teams are going to be taking running backs in the first round. But Miami is one of those teams that are most likely, with 3 picks. If they trade, then it won't happen. But with 3 picks, they're going to take one of those 2 running backs.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is if there is a running back coming off the board, it's going to be DeAndre Swift. He'll be the first one off the board. Um, and that's what majority of the mocks had is DeAndre Swift going 26 here to Miami. You, Sean, obviously picked Swift at 18. Who do you have here at 26?
I have them going offensive line. Ezra Cleveland. I like him more than Austin Jackson. I just think the Vikings would take Jackson over Cleveland. Like you said, Jeremy, I think Ezra Cleveland has jumped up draft boards. And I think it's just he's one of the more smarter offensive linemen. He really knows the position well. He's really athletic. He can get to the second ease when it comes to the running backs. He can really make open field tackles with running backs. And he's really patient. The problem is, and I think this is why he was so low up until recent, is because he wasn't that big or strong of an offensive lineman. He's tall, he's 6'6", but he doesn't have that much muscle. Like Mekhi Becton he's big. He's the complete opposite of Mekhi Becton. And he has lack of strength. He doesn't have a lot of strength in the run blocking. So I think this would be a perfect fit for Miami. Work with him. I do think he would be a day one starter just because how terrible Miami's offensive line is. But they're going to take an offensive line at 18 or 26. Like you said, I think we flip-flop picks. But if they take an offensive lineman at 18, they're going to take a running back at 26.
Yeah, I think attack. Obviously, we've agreed that Ezra Cleveland is moving up, and that Miami's going to take a tackle at some point. So that's definitely a good fit, I think, for Miami, and he'll be right next to the Clevelander. So hey, that Cleveland makes sense. But Chris, 27, your Seattle Seahawks are on the clock. What do you think they do with the pick?
Oh, and they're going to do for an 8th straight year, they will be trading the initial pick.
Yep.
And I have them trading with the Giants. So the Seahawks will trade back to pick number 36. So they're going to trade back. Now, they're going to trade back a little bit, 9 spots. So I have the Giants picking right now, and they're going to pick Cesar Ruiz at 27 because they definitely need some offensive line help and center as well. They need help all of that offensive line. I mean, they're just not good on the offensive line. They need They need better protection for Daniel Jones, and I think this is just be a solid pick for them. They need protect. That's the biggest thing because actually, to be honest, skill position wise, they're actually pretty good. Wide receiver and running back, I actually think they're pretty good at at all those positions. It's just that they need better run blocking and they need better pass protection because your franchise is in the hands of Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. You need to make sure they can actually produce and stay healthy.
Yeah. I like the pick with Ruiz. I'm high on him. Sean clearly isn't. But Sean, you actually have the collective's pick here. So go ahead and announce the collective's pick for 27.
When I was making the mock draft, I was like, you know what, Seattle's going to trade it. And I'm like, you know what, if Yetur Gross-Matos, an edge rusher from Penn State, is still on the board, why in God's name would you make another trade in the first round? Like, Seattle, you're not getting anywhere without a pass rush, especially with Jadeveon Clowney probably leaving. So I think they do keep the pick this year. If Yetur Gross-Matos is there at 27, you can't pass that up. You can't just trade because you want to get a couple more second rounders in a third. I think this would be the perfect pick. He is a perfect edge rusher. He's got strong hands, high motor, exactly what Pete Carroll wants. So I think you got to take an edge rusher here at 27 and keep the pick.
Yeah, Gross-Matos, I think the fact that Seattle has not signed Jadeveon Clowney yet is a bit concerning. Obviously, that's who he would be replacing if he were to be the pick for Seattle. I think that Gross Matos would be a good fit there. I like the pick. I just think that Clowney. I think they will get a deal done with Clowney. I think that Seattle will get it done. And I also agree with Chris. Seattle will be trading out of this pick. But the Cleveland Browns have traded twice back in my draft, and that gives them enough capital to trade back into the first round at 27, and they go and they get AJ Epinesa. AJ Epinesa, again, as we've said, he was in January. Epinesa was the HTF Collective's 11th overall pick to the Jets. In February, he went, this was after the combine, to 23 to the Patriots, and then 23 to the Patriots again in March. And now he went 19 in this one to the Vegas Raiders, which I think is a bit high. To me, I don't think Epinesa is going to be in the top 25. I think he's going to continue to fall. And because I think you have K'Lavon Chasen is clearly ahead of him, and I think that just edge rushers in this draft are just not as much of a priority. I don't think that people are looking at this edge class and thinking very much of it. Yetur Gross-Matos could also be seen as someone that is taken here, but ultimately I went with Epinesa because I think that he is a better talent for what his draft position will be. I think he will end up going. I think he will end up going in the second round, but or late in the first. So Epinesa here at 27 for the Browns, and now we have the Baltimore Ravens, AFC North Division rival, here at 28. Who do you think they go for, Chris?
I have them getting Yetur Gross-Matos to help that defense with pass rush, because numbers-wise, that defense was actually pretty good, but they do have a couple of holes in their defense, and they did at times struggle to get after the quarterback. Same as the secondary. Their secondary, especially corner, struggled a little bit. Jimmy Smith struggled some, a little bit during the season. I was torn between him and AJ Terrell. Those are the two people I was torn between. But I decided to go with the better prospect, in my opinion, and Gross Matos, and because you could plug him in to go off the edge and make that defense a little more complete, because their O line is great. They don't need O linemen. Like O line that's probably the least worried. O line and quarterback are probably like the least worried. I think their offense in general is like the least worried thing. So it had to be defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I kind of went with that. And I kind of went with the best available, I think, on the defense. That's kind of how I went with it.
Gross Matos was also someone I considered here at 28. I think a lot of us thought front seven help for the Ravens would be where they go. And that's why I went with Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. I think that I like his size. I like his speed off the edge. I think that he could be a strong player in the league moving forward. And that's what the Ravens need. The Ravens need pass rush. Matt Judon's he's up in the air for next season being on the franchise tag, so you definitely want some depth there that you lost in free agency. So Zach Bond is my pick here, but the collective's pick actually was selected correctly by Sean. So Sean, please again announce the collective's pick here at 28 for the Ravens.
Wow, me and the collective, I'm loving it. I think they end up going Patrick Queen, linebacker from LSU. Listen, they need a linebacker, a starting linebacker. That was one of their main issues last year. And I think they got help on that front seven with Calais Campbell. Now you draft a guy like Patrick Queen. Not the best linebacker from LSU, in my opinion, even though you guys had him going ahead. That's fine of, Kenneth Murray and can't even think of his name, K'Lavon Chasen. But I think he could really bring some help to this Ravens defense that looked a little gassed last year, in my opinion. I think when teams play really fast on the Ravens, that's what really ends up hurting them. So a guy with a high motor, has a big burst can really end up helping that, linebacking group in Baltimore.
Yep. Patrick Queen, the collective's pick at 28. 29 here. This was a difficult one. I thought tackle was where they go. The Titans at 29, and Josh Jones is the best offensive tackle on the board. He has a big range, though, of where he could end up. People are saying first for him is his ceiling, but also people are saying he could go as far as third round. But given Tennessee's need for a tackle, that's where he goes here for me. Austin Jackson was also someone I was considering for this pick, but Josh Jones is ultimately the guy that the Tennessee Titans go with here. That's what Chris and I think. But again, Sean, the collective agrees with you. I don't see why Tennessee needs a running back, considering they had the leading rusher last season. But go ahead and announce the 29th pick for the collective mock.
So the collective picks Jonathan Taylor with this pick. The first or second best running back in the draft, depends on the team. I'll just say personally what I thought when I was making this pick. I was thinking, listen, okay, we are going to franchise tag Derrick Henry. We're going to have to sign him to a long-term extension. But what if we screw up and we don't want to pay him the money that he wants? We lost Dion Lewis, which, again, they need a backup running back. And I think, yes, they do need offensive line help, but I do think they would go running back here because, again, if you can get a guy like Jonathan Taylor to be a backup and get you in passing situations, that would only help Ryan Tannehill. I think that's a no-question, no-brainer pick here. And then you can go offensive tackle in the next round. But, yeah, I can understand where the weirdness comes from. I wouldn't be – if I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, I would be kind of confused. But I think he'd be a great backup. And then if, God forbid, you don't re-sign Derrick Henry, you have an automatic starter that you can plug in.
Right. And number 30 here, I went with another trade. I think you're going to see a lot of teams trading back into the first round. I feel like we see it every year. Last year, the New York Giants traded into the 30th pick to get DeAndre Baker, another corner. I have them trading back to the 30th pick again this year to take Yetur Gross-Matos. I think that Gross-Matos should be a top 35 pick. If he's not taken this first round, he will be one of the best available for day 2. The Giants need help at edge because Marcus Golden was their leader in sacks last year. I think he had 10.5. Is not signed on the team to my knowledge. They did sign Kyler Fackrell from ironically enough, the Green Bay Packers, but they need to do more than just Fackrell. They need to get some youth at the position. They need to get some depth at the position, and that's what Gross-Matos does for them at 30. That I think, with the edge rushers in the draft, obviously there's Chase Young, and there's Kayvon Chasen at number 2. But when you get to Epinesa, Zach Bond, Yetur Gross-Matos, they're all interchangeable. And I think there's a lot of teams late in this first round that could go for edge rushers, and I think we could see a run of edge rushers here late in the first. So for me, Yetur Gross-Matos is here at 30. That's not what the collective decided. The collective, again, agreed with Sean and Chris at number 30. So Chris, Sean, why don't you guys share who the 30th pick of the collective is?
Well, we picked Jalen Reagor out of TCU at number 30. Wide receiver is one of the biggest needs for the Packers because, outside of Devontae Adams, they're kind of up. It's just up and down. To be honest, a lot of those players maybe are practice squad players. Maybe just barely making the roster potentially. So they definitely need that solidified number 2. I believe Jalen Reagor could do that because he was good as a number 1 at TCU, but he didn't really have much of a quarterback. They were the quarterback said he had him throw the football, and now he'll get Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. He will make him better, and I think that will help. I think that also helps Devontae Adams. It takes some pressure off of him.
Right. I think Jalen Reagor is again one of those guys that could go late in the first. Obviously, the Packers need a receiver, but I think the Packers trade back into the second round to get a receiver that's a little bit better value and that costs a little bit less because first round pick there's a big drop off between 30 and 35. It's crazy, but also you have the fifth year option that you don't need to marry yourself to. So that's another reason why I think Green Bay trades back into the second because they go for a different guy. 31, San Francisco. I'm going to do this quick because we're running out of time, but we all agree that Trayvon Diggs is the pick here. San Francisco, though, I'd be very shocked if they didn't trade out of this pick. This is probably the one trade in my mock that makes sense. I have them trading out of this pick with the Lions, and the Lions come in, they take Trayvon Diggs. This obviously is a result of them going for Derek Brown instead of Jeff Okudah. If they do decide to go with Jeff Okudah earlier in the draft, they're obviously not going to come back and pick the second corner late in the round. But I do think that San Francisco is trying everything they can in their power to get this pick off of their hands because I believe they don't pick after this until the fifth round. So they need to get more picks in the mid rounds for them to have some balance with their draft. That's why they ultimately traded DeForest Buckner so they could get a pick, and a first round pick is a lot. Now that they have a first round pick, they can maybe they'll trade the 13 to trade back, get more picks. But a team like San Francisco is in a perfect position to trade back here. Trayvon Diggs makes sense for the Lions. They need a corner. Diggs at 31 and 32. I'm going to do this really quickly. Jeff Gladney is the collective's pick here. It's also my pick. I think that Jeff Gladney here is a guy that's going to, I think he's going to be a starter for a decent amount of time. And Kansas City needs a corner. Kendall Fuller moved on to Washington earlier this year, so they need a corner. Jeff Gladney's not a CB1. He's not a shutdown corner, but he gets the job done. He could be a starter there for a very long time. So Jeff Gladney is the collective's pick there. So I'm going to recap this draft here for you guys. This is the final HTF mock draft. We will have this on the screen tonight at certain points, but quick recap for you guys here. Joe Burrow to Cincinnati, Chase Young to Washington, Jeff Okudah to Detroit, Isaiah Simmons to New York, Tua Tagovailoa to Miami, Justin Herbert 6 to the Chargers, 7 Derek Brown to the Panthers, 8 Tristan Wirfs to the Cardinals, 9 Jerry Jeudy to the Jags, 10 Jedrick Wills to the Browns, 11 Andrew Thomas to the Jets, Henry Ruggs goes to the Raiders at 12, CeeDee Lamb to the Niners at 13, Mekhi Becton to the Bucks at 14, CJ Henderson to the Broncos at 15, Javon Kinlaw to the Falcons at 16, K'Lavon Chasen goes to the Cowboys at 17, Josh Jones, tackle of Houston, goes to the Dolphins at 18, AJ Epinesa to the Raiders at 19, Kenneth Murray to the Jags at 20, Justin Jefferson goes 21 to the Eagles, 22 Christian Fulton, corner out of LSU, goes to the Vikings, 23 the Patriots select Denzel Mims, 24 the Saints get their quarterback of the future in Jordan Love, 25 Austin Jackson at tackle goes to the Vikings, 26 DeAndre Swift becomes the first running back off the board to the Dolphins at 26, 27 Yetur Gross-Matos to the Seattle Seahawks, 28 Patrick Queen to the Ravens, 29 Jonathan Taylor to the Tennessee Titans, 30 Jalen Reagor to the Packers, 31 Trayvon Diggs to the Niners, and 32 Jeff Gladney to the Chiefs. That's a mouthful, and this was a very long podcast.
Good job.
But, thank you. I appreciate
it.
And,
good.
But tonight it's going to be a long night, but it's going to be a super fun night. Thank you, Sean and Chris, for doing this. I'll see you guys later tonight at the HTF Draft Show. We go live at 8 p.m. Eastern, so be sure to tune into our YouTube channel. Subscribe there if you haven't done so already. We'll also be following the draft on our social media pages at Hitting the Field, so be sure to follow us there for all the draft updates. And we will also be giving you guys the aftermath on Friday. of what happened in this first round. And then after the draft is over this weekend, we will be breaking down, giving our grades for this draft, one AFC pod, one NFC pod. So be sure to check that out. Sean and Chris, thank you guys for coming on this podcast. It's the last mock draft pod, but it's been a lot of fun doing this with you guys. So thank you guys again. And HTF draft tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to join us on our YouTube channel. And until then, we'll catch you on the flip side.